We're talking about these three strikers: Osimhen, Ivan Toney, Ferguson. What is happening, people? Welcome to Gooner Down Under TV. This one is a fun one for you all, and if it's your first time on the channel, make sure to smash that subscribe button. If you're a returning viewer, new viewer, whatever viewer, hit that like button as well. It really does help out the channel. With all that being said, we've only got one place to go. We're talking about these three strikers: Osimhen, Ivan Toney, Ferguson. Who is the best for Arsenal? You know, who's maybe the best overall? Who's the best fit? We're going to get into all of that. You know, all three have sort of been different varying levels of linkageness. Why not? To Arsenal. But, you know, we're probably only going to get one if we even do. It's about choosing who should we prioritize. So we're going to look at who's the best sort of attacking striker, in terms of just getting goals, really. Who's the best sort of link-up play or Jesus-like to our maybe current system? And, you know, who gets a bit more rough, rigged in the duels? We're going to compare all of that. We're going to get my opinion at the end. Right now, I want to hear what you have to say. Who are you choosing? You only get to choose one. Are you going Ferguson, Toney, or Osimhen? Let me know. Now, let's get straight into this. I'm moving over. The stats are in my way. These are per 90, just so you know, because Osimhen and Ferguson have only played 9 and 12 games respectively in their leagues, and Toney, of course, is not playing this season so far. We all know what's going on there. Now, just a little brief, you know, intro into all of them. Osimhen 24, Ivan Toney 27, Ferguson 19. So a big range of ages here. Ferguson still has a long way to go, a lot of development. Same as Osimhen. What is happening to my voice here? Same as Osimhen. You know, only 24, can still get a lot better. Ivan Toney, not saying, you know, he's done, but he's probably in his prime years now. On average, compared to other professional athletes, these are more likely his prime years. Height. Osimhen sort of edges that a little bit. You know, is 6 centimeters taller than Toney. Not much, but it does make a little bit of a difference. And just looking at some general stats before we go into the sort of breakdowns. Goals per 90, Osimhen and Ferguson with 0.9. So they're, you know, clearing ahead the leaders in that category. Passes attempted, however, Ivan Toney surely surpasses the other two and doubles Osimhen's passes. What does that tell us? It gives us a little indication of where these stats are going to go. But can't hold this up any longer. Let's get straight into the attacking stats. What does it say? First off, we're going to look at touches. 29 per 90 for Osimhen, 35 for Ferguson, 41 for Ivan Toney. What does that mean? He's going to be the most involved in link-up play. He wants to get on the ball. He wants to make things happen. Not going to lie, before I sort of looked at a lot of these stats, I did not know how often Ivan Toney gets on the ball. You know, I thought he was a very old school, you know, just sort of fox in the box type striker with average link-up play. But that's really not the case at all. He's very good on the ball. I did not know this. You know, I don't watch Brentford week in, week out. I do watch them, and you know, you don't know if sort of someone plays in a good pass here and there, if that's their average game or not. But look, he is really serious on the ball. 41 touches means he gets really involved. Sounds a bit weird. 41 touches on the ball probably doesn't sound better, but you know what I mean. Looking at ball recoveries, he also wins the ball back the most. Now, with these things, we always do need to apply context, because while I like stats, stats can mean a whole lot of things whenever you spin them. Why does he have the most ball recoveries? Probably because Brentford play the most defensive and the most sort of aggressive defense, where they're likely to win the ball back a lot more. But he still does it. So that's, you know, it's hard because you can't take it away from him, but you also can't over exaggerate or over emphasize it. So, you know, he does win the ball back the most, and he does have the most touches per 90. Again, sounds weird, but we move. In terms of possession lost, so Ferguson really holds on to that ball well. He still gets 35 touches a game, but he doesn't lose the ball. So he's always keeping it ticking, which is also good for our sort of controlling system. We can't lose it. We need to make sure we're on it to continuously attack. He's sort of edging right there. Same as Osimhen. Doesn't lose the ball much, although he doesn't also have the ball much. So maybe that's something we do need to think about. We'll get into that a bit later, but we'll just keep moving. Offsides, Evan Ferguson always reading that line, whereas Osimhen takes a little bit more gambles, gets offside a lot more. Now, contextualize it again. If he's not getting on the ball, what does that mean? He's probably making runs in behind, which means he's more likely to be offside. So yes, he's offside more, but that's more his play style, so we move. Goals, like I said, 0.9 for Osimhen, 0.9 for Ferguson. In terms of getting goals, they're the two guys. Don't get me wrong, Toney's right there with him, he's not far behind, but they are the two more superior goal scorers, I guess. And Toney sort of does everything else while also scoring goals. Moving on, non-penalty goals, that's when Osimhen starts coming down and Ferguson stays right on that mark. So this season, Ferguson has been the best open goal play scorer, whereas Osimhen, some of his goals are coming from penalties. Now, let me also say, if you're looking at last season's stats, it does change up a little bit, where I think Osimhen's goals per 90 was 1 per game, and his goals in open play was 0.9. So right along where Ferguson was, Napoli is having a slightly subpar season, so, balances it out a little bit, but also, I guess last season they're skewed because they're so much better than everyone else. Whatever. Stats are weird. Let's just get into it just so we can get an idea of who plays like what. So, goals from outside the box. Pretty much 0 and 0 for Toney and Osimhen. Ferguson, 0.5. What does that mean? He gives us another edge. He doesn't have to be just around the box. He can open teams up and let other people sort of find space later so that, the team would have to close him down. He can score from out there. It's another threat, which I think is a really pivotal key. Now moving over, Osimhen in the box more, gets not a lot more, but the most headed goals. So let's recap that real quick. How can you summarize that all into a few things? Toney, most on the ball, gets the most touches, most ball recoveries as well, so he's sort of in the duels and just involved in the play the most. Ferguson gets the most goals outside of penalties. Osimhen is always looking for those runs. He's going to be offside a bit more, but he gets the most headed goals, and he's a bagsman. He is a bagsman. Honestly, the only thing I'm scared about here, Osimhen maybe will, revert closer to Eddie in our system, because our system is so refined on our striker sort of doing link-up play. So I think we need to solve a lot of other issues if we do bring Osimhen in. We are going to have to find ways to create chances for him. It's a whole nother topic. We'll get into that, don't you worry. Now, let's look at the passing. Osimhen doesn't get involved on the ball much, yet he still has 0.2 assists per 90. So right there with Toney. So maybe, he's efficient. Doesn't get on the ball much, but when he does, he makes something happen. Chances created as well. Right there. He creates 1 chance a game. So I guess I'm going to have to completely revert what I just said. Maybe he can create. Maybe in the fact that just Napoli doesn't put him in a situation where he doesn't get the ball enough to do that. Whereas in Arsenal, he'll be asked to do that a lot more. So, but right there with him, Ivan Toney, 1 chance a game he's creating. So he is making things happen. He wants to get on the ball. He wants to make things happen. Passes attempted, there we go. He doubles what Osimhen does. He's always involved. He is the head of that Brentford attack when he plays. Just going to skip a few. You can read along. I don't want to sort of read out every single stat, but a few other ones that are interesting. Through ball attempted, 0.4 to the other two, 0. So Ivan Toney is always, like I said, trying to make things happen, trying to be dynamic, trying to be progressive, trying laying it off to his wingers, whoever it takes, and that is replicated in all of these stats. most layoffs, most forward passes by a mile. So he is trying to progress. I think that would fit perfectly in our system. I think that would fit absolutely perfectly. We need someone who can come in, who can score goals. He's basically sort of like what we want Jesus to be. So he has the link-up play. He can get other people involved. He can create chances. He can make those forward passes through balls. Even his crossing, 15% of his crosses are on target compared to 0 of the other 2. So he does have that link-up play. His goals are slightly behind the other 2, but also I would say Brentford score less than the other 2 without even looking. So really, if he was to play for Arsenal, could he be exactly what we need? We're going to look at one more thing before we get into it. So, take-ons completed, 0.6, 0.6. So Toney and Osimhen are also trying to take on defenders the most, and Osimhen has the best take-on success. What does that mean? Maybe he's the best carrier of the ball. So maybe he can turn, like Jesus, drive through a couple players and finish a shot off by himself. That's still creativity in my eyes. You don't need to be able to pass to someone or make a through ball to be creative. If you can create for yourself, that's still doing it. If you pick up the ball, you beat your defender one-on-one and you slot it past the keeper, I don't care if you pass to someone else or not. You did exactly your job. And look, he wins his take-ons 40% of the time. So he's really good at taking the ball and beating people one-on-one. Aerial duels now. Ivan Toney sort of really topping that. He gets involved in the most, which you expect because Brentford, are sort of that more rough, rigged team. But he also wins the highest percentage of them. Same as ground duels. So he's involved in the duels, in the air, on the ground. He's close with the take-ons, but not quite. What does this mean? What does this mean? I could be boring and say it depends, and all 3 serve a different purpose. But this is what I'm going to say. Osimhen, for me, is the best bagsman. In terms of fox in the box, in the goal, get the job done, he's the guy for me. Also, taking on players, being that guy who can just be a bit dynamic, maybe break a low block by himself, get the ball and just attack, Osimhen. In terms of also getting assists with low opportunities, Osimhen. Now, the thing is, would he be able to come into the Premier League and do the same? Maybe where you don't have as much time as you do in Italian football, will he still be able to get on the ball and make a dynamic pass to get one chance created a game? I don't know. He would cost the most as well, I'd expect, of the 3, although he will also have 1 year remaining on his contract, so you might be able to get him cheap. But I know Chelsea's going to be involved. There's going to be a real big bidding war, so maybe not. That's not the point. The point is, what type of striker does Arsenal want? From the current system, what I would say is the best striker is Ivan Toney. Gets very close amount of goals, however, constantly gets on the ball, makes the most progressive passes, lays the ball off the most. He's basically Jesus with goals. He's not going to be as sort of dynamic as Jesus and maybe be able to skill defenders as much. But in terms of being efficient on the ball, making the right pass, being in the right spot, finishing, Ivan Toney is that man. There are reports, though, that maybe Arsenal don't want to go in for him, which is a bit sad because I feel like he'd be the perfect fit at the moment. He knows the league, his experience. We don't have to wait for him to either adapt or develop. He can come right in and score a bunch of goals, make a massive impact to our team as well. But then we got Ferguson, who's maybe the best middle ground of them all. He's only 19, yet goals is right up there. His touches right up there. Take-ons right up there. And he has a bunch of ways to go. He's only 19 years old. He can grow with everyone. But is that what we want? Do we want another player to grow, or do we want to try and win this year? To be honest, my preferred option, I don't think it's going to happen, but January, we go buy Toney, we get it done, we maybe buy or loan a midfielder as well, and we go and try and compete for the Premiership. or the Premier League. If we wait till the off-season or the summer, then it's sort of between Osimhen and Ferguson, and you're going to have to choose any given day. Like, yes, Osimhen's probably the bigger star, but I think Ferguson can develop into a better player. You know, he seems to have everything, which is something I don't know if Osimhen has. You know, I feel like like I said before, if we don't get our chance creation up, is Osimhen going to be wasted in our team? You know, we don't create that many chances. We don't put it on a plate for our strikers. You know, yes, we can talk about Jesus and Eddie not getting enough goals, but do they honestly get chances created for them? And I think this is why maybe sometimes we exaggerate how often our strikers are creating chances rather than the chances should be created for them sometimes too. You know, we have Odegaard, we have Martinelli, we have Saka. These guys should be creating for our strikers. And if we go into maybe a more free-flowing offense or attack, then I think Osimhen would really thrive in there. And if we have our wingers being a little bit more dynamic, not constantly cutting in, then I would take him. If we're sort of playing this controlling system and we don't want to go for Toney because of maybe the whole betting scandal or the age, then I'm going Ferguson. So a lot of ifs, but that's the thing. No ifs, I'm taking Toney in January and let's go try and compete for the league. At the end of the season, if we're going to play this sort of system in the future, I'm going Ferguson. If we be a little bit more dynamic again, I would go Osimhen. Hopefully that's not a cop-out. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love sort of making these videos. Let me know if you enjoy them. I'll happily make more in the future. But for now, take care of yourself and I'll see you in that next video. Peace.